Welcome, bent riders around the world. My name is Gary Solomon, and you're watching the Laidback Bike Report. We're awful glad to have you guys with us today. We've got a show that is going to encompass a lot of different subjects, and I think we have a lot of interesting things to show you, so I hope you stay tuned. Let me tell you a little bit about what we have lined up. First of all the news in the recumbent world lately has been about a gentleman named Craig Calfee and his potential purchase of Easy Racers. I know many of you have been reading about this on Bent Rider and on Facebook, so we were able to get Craig to come on the show today, and we're going to discuss that with him and a few other things, learn a little bit more about Craig Calfee. So stay tuned for that. We're going to have Bryan talking about the Catrike 700 and his review of that. So I know you guys would be interested in that. We're not going to have a sports report today. Denny pretty much shot his wad, I guess, a couple weeks ago on the show with all the news and sports that he had from the Florida trip. But he is with us today, and I'm sure we'll be chiming in on comments. We have as a main guest Jeff Bishop. Jeff is a school teacher who has decided to do some building of a velomobile. He's decided to build a velomobile, would be a better way to say that, and encompass what he does at school and his students in the project. So we look forward to talking to Jeff here in a few minutes. I think you guys will enjoy him. We have Peter Stull back with us, of course. He's been with us for a while talking about the history of the recumbent. And he is going to talk a little bit about home builds and maybe, I guess, a home build that has made it into the production level as well. So we'll be looking forward to talking to Peter. And of course, we're going to have our Laidback Bike Report contest as we've done the last few months. So pay attention to our guests, pay attention to their slides. The first viewer to best answer the questions that I'll ask after the majority of our show is over, the first one to answer those questions and send them to me via email at laidbackbikereport@gmail.com will be the winner. And this is for live viewers only, obviously, but if you are watching us live today, we look forward to looking for your answers at laidbackbikereport@gmail.com. Also, if you've won a prize here in the last few months, please hold yourself back a little bit and see if we can let somebody else have a chance. And oh yeah, what do you win? You could win a choice of a hat or a Fat Chick Goes AWOL book. So we'll let you guys decide, let the winner decide what he wants or she wants. All right. Also, we want to talk a little bit about subscribing to the Laidback Bike Report YouTube channel. If you look down at the lower right-hand corner right there, you will see a little red subscribe button. Please click on that and subscribe to the channel. Click on the little bell. That will give you a notification when we go live or produce a video, and that way you'll know about it right away. And if you want to find out a little bit more about what we do at the Laidback Bike Report, in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see a little I pop out, lowercase I, and that will take you to our website, laidbackbikereport.com, where you can find out all kinds of information about the show and what we've produced in the past, what's coming up, and so on. So we hope that you'll be able to follow those links and find out more about the show. We also hope that you will join us on the YouTube live chat, which accompanies our live webcast. If you are watching on YouTube, you should be able to see that to the right. I guess right over here, you should be able to see the live chat. Jump on there, ask your questions, make comments. You can chat with our panelists who are anxious to communicate with you. Be a part of our program on the live chat. So you can do this on the YouTube page. If you're watching on Facebook or Bent Rider or Twitter, you want to click on the YouTube link and you're in the bottom of your watch box right there. It should say little YouTube if you move your cursor in there. And you click on that, you go to the YouTube page and find the live chat. All right, folks. I want to, at this point, talk about our amazing sponsors, who are Terracycle. makers of exquisite recumbent parts and accessories for your bent, and Trailside.bike, Trailside.bike, a fine recumbent bike shop on the Withlacoochee Trail in Florida, and Velocity, builders of performance wheels and rims, handmade in the USA. Well, that is a good place to go, a good place to start now and introduce our guests, our panelists. First of all, from Salzgitter, Germany, our show director, it's Lars Kamm. Hello, Lars.
Hi, Gary. Hi, folks.
All right. Hi, Lars. And now we'll move on to Raymond, Mississippi. He just bought a Green Speed Arrow, and he still doesn't have enough trikes. It's our media man, Trey Burgoyne. Hey, Trey.
Hello, everyone. How's it going?
Good to have you with us, Trey. And from Rochester, New York, the founder and editor of Bent Rider and the anchor of the Laidback News Desk, it's Bryan Ball. Hey, Bryan.
Hey, it's me. Always happy to be here, man.
Great to have you with us. And moving on to Sayre, Pennsylvania, our Laidback Sports Desk anchor, it's Denny Voorhees. Hey, Denny.
Hey, another fine day here in Sayre. Good to see everybody.
Good to have you with us. And from Cold Spring, Kentucky, he just sent his Santa suit to the cleaners. It's Larry Varney. Hey, Larry. Larry is muted, but that's one of the few times you won't hear him.
Hi.
There you go. Good job. All right. Thanks, Larry. Okay, if you want to come on back, we are going to get on to the show itself. So we have, as I mentioned at the top, a gentleman who has made big noises in the bent community by not only talking about perhaps buying the Easy Racer company, but asking for the bent community's input on what he should do if he does buy Easy Racers, how best to proceed, what are some of the ideas out there. I think that's really commendable. And as part of that process, he has seated to come on the show here, talk about his ideas as far as buying Easy Racers and where he makes his current bikes, and maybe get some ideas from you folks on live chat as well. So at this point, I wanted to introduce you to Craig Calfee. Hello, Craig.
Hey, how are you?
Hey, Craig. Okay, so Craig, we're going to start out, I think, by showing a little bit of Craig's facility there. Craig, where are you exactly in California?
We're in La Selva Beach, California.
Okay, and so that's where his shop is, and he's going to take us around just a bit and show us some of the things in the shop and tell us about what he does. I guess it'd be a good time to tell us about what are the things that you're doing right now in the shop. So would you mind starting that off, Craig?
I will. So here I'm currently sitting in the conference room, which I'd like to brag a little bit, has a very nice ocean view. And it's just so the folks out in the colder parts of the world can get a sense of the environment we're in. So it's a very nice place to visit. Also, I do like to show off my conference room table because it's made of bamboo, which is one of our specialties. And I'd say perhaps the thing that I'm most known for is Greg LeMond's racing bikes back in the late 90s, or early 90s, I should say. And that's one of them. So we're known for being a pioneer in carbon fiber construction. We've done other bikes, of course, with nice paint jobs and things, nice high-end road racing bikes. Just a little quick, let's get an overview of the shop here. So this is our shop. It's about 14,000 square feet. We have a great mechanics area, showroom. We specialize in tandems. And lots
Craig,
of other
your fingers
projects.
are kind of over. I think those are your fingers over the top. There we go. And hold it real steady if you would, because we're not getting a real clear picture here. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Is that working?
Yeah, hold it real steady. That's fine.
Okay. Anyway, that's our shop, and we even have a big old gantry crane. and can do a lot. We do a lot of repairs. We repair a lot of carbon fiber frames, and that's been an interesting service business. So we know very much about customer service. While we're going down the stairs here, I want to show you my very first carbon bike made in 1987.
Wow.
So, yeah, so hopefully that's a pretty old bike, one of the earliest carbon bikes you'll ever see. And next to it is the first bamboo bike, first modern bamboo bike made in 1995. And so we've been developing the bamboo bike technology for a long time. And let's keep going here. We've got a number of other bikes here to show you. This is our Luna Pro. This one has couplers on it. So we're quite familiar with working with couplers and carbon fiber. Tandems, of course. And there's a Tetra tandem. So we're well known in the tandem community as making the pretty much the highest performance, best quality tandem. And we do a lot of custom geometry and custom frames, as well as special needs bikes. Over here is our newest bike, our newest version of our bamboo bike. This one has carbon fiber reinforcement on the inside, and it's a lot lighter than our previous bamboo bikes. So lots of other bikes to see here. We have all kinds of special projects going on, even a tall bike, which is a lot of fun to ride around here. And let's see, what else have we got here? We've got another special project going on here. This is a streamlined motorcycle. This one is just got its bubble canopy positioned. It's got a zero electric drivetrain on it, so we're quite familiar with electric assist, and in this case, freeway speed electric motorcycles. The rest of the shop is, like most shops, kind of set up for manufacturing. This one's for molding our regular Tetra and Dragonfly frames. It's a little tricky to see, but we're also getting involved with 3D printing some molds. So this is kind of exciting. We've got two larger size 3D printers. So we can do custom geometry and build molds pretty quickly for that. So that's been our newest development with the molding part. We have a nice collection of molds already for diamond frame bikes. And we also have a set of molds for our old stiletto. Maybe you want to pop up the stiletto picture while I move over to my desktop.
We got it. We're looking at that right now. So, and that's yeah. Get on over there, Craig, and we're gonna continue the questioning then. You've talked a little bit about some of the other bikes that you've done, but we want to talk about the history you might have with recumbent bikes. I think some people are well aware, but a lot of people may not know what you've done in terms of recumbent bikes. So let's go there. We do have, as you guys see, the Calfee Stiletto is one bike that people know about. I'm gonna go ahead and are you on you're on the laptop now, Craig? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to eject the other one here. And
hang me up on the other one.
Yeah, I just hung it up, so we don't have to worry about that. That's perfect. All right, now you look good. Okay, so can we talk then for a minute about your history with recumbent biking? What have you done in the past? Who have you known? And what are you thinking as far as that goes?
Yeah, I first was introduced to recumbent bikes by meeting Gardner Martin back in, I think it was the year 2000 or so. And I was interested in, we've been getting requests at that point for a carbon fiber recumbent bike. And I thought I'd meet Gardner since he's a local guy here. And we talked about doing a carbon gold rush at that point. But it didn't kind of go anywhere. He was suffering some health issues and was just kind of busy with producing the regular bikes and the tie rush. So nothing really happened at that point until later. He and Freddie Markham had a falling out, I guess, and there was an interest from Freddie to do a modern version of the Easy Racers geometry. So I worked with Freddie for a little bit on the stiletto, and that was a really successful design. People really loved it, and it introduced suspension to the design, and it changed the steering geometry to what I felt was a little easier to handle, especially at slower speeds. But it turned out to be a very fast bike with the fairing and body sock. Freddie was able to take it up to really high speeds with it and make sure it was stable. So that was a good design, but my work with Freddie didn't work out so well. And so
Craig, before you go on there, could you explain a little bit about that steering design? Because it is kind of unusual for the average bent rider to see something like that. What was that?
That's it's a remote steering, meaning it steers through a connecting rod. So you just move a little eccentric lever that's part of the hardware, and it moves that rod forward and backwards, which also in turn turns the fork. And you can change the steering ratio and make it more sensitive or less sensitive by changing the length of the arm. It turned out we just did a equal length, so it seemed like a normal bike, but it's a neat feature to have. And it allows you to steer from any position really, and it gave a bunch of adjustability, so you could really put those handlebars exactly where you wanted them.
Okay. Now, so you were saying that it didn't really work out. So does that mean that there was a problem? Did it ever go into production? Were there just so many of them that were made? What happened?
There's only about 20 of them made, so they're pretty rare if you have one. And we might consider going back to making them because it really was a great design, and we just
the people that have them love them.
That's what I'm told. I mean, I get good feedback about them, and they kind of hold on to them. So we didn't have kind of a name in the recumbent world, so I basically dropped the idea and focused on our core competency. But I've always had a desire to have a recumbent in the lineup, partially because I personally prefer a recumbent bike. It's more comfortable for me, and I don't have any back problems and saddle issues. So I love the recumbent myself. I just haven't dived into it the way one should when tackling a whole new
right. So this should probably bring us right to my next question, which has to do with, well, what exactly was it that led up to your decision to purchase Easy Racers? And you've given us a little hint here, I think, about wanting to do recumbents. Can you tell us, first of all, I guess maybe we need to lay out here the status of this right now. Tell us what the status of the purchase is right now, so we know how to proceed as far as this interview goes.
Yeah, basically, I've been negotiating with the current owner, Denton, and it's been going pretty well. We're both kind of arriving at a halfway point, so to speak, with our negotiations. And it's a bit tricky. There's a lot of moving parts to it. There's a lot to take over. Just the history and the legacy of Easy Racers, all the historical bikes, all the inventory. And there's a lot of decisions to make about what to do with the brand. So I've been just deep into market research and asking a lot of questions and trying to decide what I need to do. But as far as the status of purchasing, it's still in negotiations. It hasn't gone through yet, but I anticipate it could go through as early as this week. So we're right on the edge there.
That sounds great. I'm sure a lot of people are rooting for you to be able to pull this off, Craig. So, all right, let's go back just a little bit.
Can I jump in just
sure,
for
please, Bryan, please.
1 second? I knew Gardner really well. I knew Freddie very well, and I just wanted to say I think Gardner would be very happy with you taking it over. Yeah,
Gardner and I had a lot in common. We were both the essential tinkerers. I'm here on Sunday. I always come to my shop on Sunday because that's my day to have fun in the shop. And I know Gardner was one of those guys who just loved the job, loved the work. And it's not like a job. I have to brag. I get to have fun all the time, working on my bikes and having a great time designing bikes. Sure, I have to do some less fun stuff, but at the end of the day, it's a great business to be in. And you know, Gardner had, I think, the same enthusiasm and passion for building things. So
Yeah, there's nothing better than profiting from your passion.
yeah, it's much better than a regular job.
Yeah.
And so as to why, really what led up to your decision to purchase Easy Racers, I think you've probably pretty much answered that. So it seems almost like it was destined that you come in this direction as far as liking recumbents for yourself and being a part of that history. Seems like that makes a lot of sense in terms of where you are right now with that. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I've been kind of shoved into the role of taking it over. Denton didn't have so much luck selling it to other people, and a lot of feedback has been, well, talk to Craig Calfee. He's right there in Watsonville. You might, you know, he's already kind of known about it and has a relationship with the brand already. So a lot of people have been pushing the two of us together to work this out.
Yeah.
And it's and I'm getting a lot of support from the recumbent community. Not only Bent Rider Online, but other places have been responding to the survey that I posted, and it's gotten a huge amount of really positive feedback. So I'm pretty stoked.
Yeah, deservedly so, Craig. No doubt about that. Let's move on to let's go ahead and assume that the deal goes through. I think everybody is really interested in what's going on in your head as far as what your plans are for Easy Racers. So we know about the Tour Easy and the Gold Rush and the Tie Rush and all the things, but we also, from what you just showed us at your shop, know that you work with carbon and bamboo and such. Can you give us maybe a little hint at what directions you might go if this week it turns out you have bought Easy Racers? Where are you headed with that?
Well, the new materials, or they're not even that new anymore, but executing a classic design in different materials is definitely an option, an easy option for us to do here. There already is a C Rush, the carbon fiber Gold Rush, and a bamboo one, of course, would be exciting, I think, to a lot of people. So we'll probably prototype that and get us a kind of updated C Rush going. The Tie Rush, we have Roberto, the welder from 20 plus years at Easy Racers, and he's quite good with welding titanium as well as steel. So there's no reason we couldn't take on the existing product line and keep offering that. The question is, you know, is the long wheelbase recumbent a viable market for a fairly expensive place to make them, which is California? So there's a lot of business decisions to make, but I think generally speaking, we'll keep the original designs going and service the fairly substantial installed base of users now, and continue with some new fresh stuff that I think people might want to buy. We might do a refurbishment program with various upgrades to existing Easy Racers designs. There's electric assist packages to develop. There's all kinds of upgrades to the components, including the new X shifter, which I think is a real interesting development for a retrofittable upgrade. Yeah, there's just tons of stuff to do with the existing stock. And then there's the trike market, which is currently outselling recumbent bicycles 9-to-1. So clearly we need to address the trike market. There's already some great designs that Gardner worked on already before he passed, and we could develop and further modify those. So, you know, there's a lot to do, and it's just a huge puzzle for me to figure out what's the right thing to do, what's the best thing to do, and make it in a sustainable manner so that it doesn't struggle financially, so that we can support the customer service the way it should be. And that's basically the main problem with the current Easy Racers is it's financially unsustainable, so that it can provide good customer service. And
absolutely, I think you're going to have to obviously make the decisions that are going to make the business viable, or none of this is going to make any difference. So it's really, I think the whole recumbent community is behind you on this, Craig, and you've touched all the bases here as far as the questions I was going to ask you as far as what you're going to get into, and trikes was a big one. So it's interesting to hear you talk about that as well. But the long wheelbase, yeah. So is that turn out to be viable in the long run? Will it have a comeback? I think you're the guy to make it come back if it can happen. So, but again, that'll be your decision. Go ahead, Brian.
I kind of look at it like, Porsche makes.
Brian.
Is the 911.
Brian, you're kind of cutting in and out there. Could you come back and try that again? All right. Let's. Brian will be back in a minute here, I'm sure.
Am I out? Okay.
Yeah. Now we hear you. Go ahead.
I look.
Yeah, we're still having problems, Brian. I'm sorry. We'll come back to you a little bit later if we can. So, Craig, yeah, that's pretty much it. Now, the one thing that made a huge difference and made such a big impact on the community was your willingness to ask people for their help in terms of deciding or giving you suggestions on what to do, which I think really meant a lot to everybody. So once again, could you tell us how the bent community can help you out in terms of ideas and that sort of thing? What are you looking for in terms of suggestions?
Well, it's a pretty simple customer market research survey, and there's a lot of very specific questions about what people want and what they already have. But at the end, it's basic one question that's wide open. What should we do with the brand? And that link to that is on the Bent Rider online thread about the Easy Racers survey. It's a little bit buried, and I don't know if Brian can kind of pop it up to.
Well, we will actually link to that on the description below the video that comes out for the YouTube video that follows this, Craig.
Okay,
so
perfect.
You'll have it there,
great.
and yep, and it'll be on Bent Rider. It's also on Facebook. Anybody should be. It's on Laidback Bike Report page on Facebook as well.
Yeah,
so we'll link to that in the description below.
That's the main way that I'd like to get feedback at this point. I know there's a lot of passion out there for the brand, but to be honest, I have to try to funnel people through that, because otherwise I get too distracted with lots of different conversations. So at some point we'll kind of open the phones up for when we hire an Easy Racers specialist. And so if this deal goes through, we'll be in pretty serious recruitment mode. And perhaps any of the listeners who live near Watsonville who have an interest and are not currently employed, give me a call if you're interested, because I will need some staff to handle this. And anyone with the recumbent experience is welcome to apply.
That sounds great. Mm-hmm. Craig, Brian, are you back with us a little bit? Let me hear you.
I hope so.
Go ahead. Let's go. I want to get your question in.
I just was saying about when you talked about, building trikes also, I look at that. It's kind of like, I know that the long wheelbase stuff is more your passion, but that's why Porsche makes SUVs, because they sell so many SUVs that they can afford to keep making the 911.
Yeah,
that's kind of the analogy I look at it. Like all the big sports car companies make an SUV because that's what people buy, but it allows them to still keep making the little passion projects, like a bamboo, Gold Rush that may not sell a lot, but if you're selling a lot of trikes with the same name on them, you can afford to keep doing it. Is that kind of what you were thinking?
Sure. I mean, whatever pays the bills at this point, and a modern trike. I'm really interested in the Delta trike, actually. As they transition from a long wheelbase bike to a trike, a lot of those guys are going to want kind of a higher seat position Delta trike. Having said that, the Tadpole trike is obviously a popular item. And
but also there's only one really good Delta trike company out there, so there's room for more.
Yeah, Yeah, and when you ride them, I mean, it depends on what you're riding for. I mean, it's kind of similar to the traditional bike market, where there's the adventure riders who go on tours and aren't out there to go on the Saturday ride and beat their buddies in a testosterone fueled race. It's more about enjoying the ride. So I'm not quite sure which market we'll appeal to, but we'll focus on the one that's most appropriate and design products to suit that niche just as well.
Well, I'm eager to see it.
Yep, I think Bryan speaks for us all on that one. So, all right, I think we need to wrap this up if we can. Craig, did you have any final thoughts for us here?
No, just at this point, go check out that survey if you wouldn't mind, and feel like it's only 13 questions, and it would be really helpful to get as much data as possible. I'm kind of a data junkie, so whatever the data shows is kind of the direction we like to go.
That's super. All right, I promise we will get that on the description so that people can click on it and answer those questions and help you out, Craig. So once again, thank you so much for joining us on the Laidback Bike Report, and we will be back in touch. I'm sure if this all goes through, we will have you back on and note your progress and continue to follow you as you continue to look towards Easy Racers as a viable brand. Thanks a lot, Craig Calfee.
Thank you.
All right, Craig. Okay, folks, we are going to move along. I think, Bryan, if you are ready to go, we're going to go to your news report. You good to go?
I'm good to go, Gary.
All right.
As long as my audio isn't screwing up again. Yeah, so first of all, we have one little news item. It's winter, but still something cool coming out. Other than, I was going to talk about Craig Calfee, but he just did it himself. Cruise Bike has a new bike coming out called the Q45, which if you're familiar with their older full suspension folding bike, this is kind of an update of that. It's like a hybrid of a T50 and that. Very cool. You can sign up now on their website. It's very easy to find at cruisebike.com to get the insider information. It allows you to order early, and the pre-orders are going to get some cool color options. It looks a lot like a T50 with rear suspension. I'm looking in the photos. They haven't specified, but there's a whole lot of quick releases on that thing. So I think it's intended to be kind of folding like the previous Quest, I believe it was called, was. So yeah, very, very cool. Sign up for the insider info on that. Even if you don't want one, it's cool just to look at them. But also wanted to talk about, Larry and I just teamed up on a review of the new Catrike 700 because it is available now. It's out at all your dealers. You can just go get one. A lot of very cool changes to this bike. Primarily among them, one that you don't notice by glancing at it, but it does have a through axle in the rear now, meaning it's not a quick release. Now it's, I think, 142 millimeter wide through axle that you have to bolt on. Really helps stiffen up the rear end of the trike. If there was one complaint people had about the previous 700, it was that the wheel flexed when you turned into corners. Putting the through axle on it helps that a whole lot. And it comes with a very nice, very expensive zip wheel as stock, which is cool. And in addition to that, if you want to buy through axle rear wheels, most of them have disc brake tabs on them. So Catrike said, you know, some people want a parking brake. Might as well put one on there because we have the disc brake tabs there anyway. So it does come with a rear disc brake parking brake. If you, like me, think a high performance trike doesn't need that, you can just take it off. It's not a big deal. It's not a necessary thing to the function of the trike. I will probably take it off on my personal one. But if you really want a parking brake that you have a little lever to click and you're not just putting a Velcro strap on the handle, it's there, which is cool. The other main change that I know Larry and I both really liked, and I think we were both surprised how much of a difference it made, they did change the seat geometry a little bit. They put a little bit more of a kick up at the top of the seat, and there's a more padded mesh on it. That mesh will fit your current 700. So if you currently have a 700 and you want a little bit nicer mesh, you can just buy that from Catrike, and it is an improvement. But that little kick up makes you feel much more glued in and planted in the seat. If there was one problem I had with the 700 was when I was pedaling really hard, I was constantly scooching up the seat, you know, and I was scooching back down all the time. Where now I'm not. Now you're really glued in. There's no hot spots from the bars or anything, you know, from the seat frame or anything like that. And that stiffer rear wheel has really affected the handling. And I will be the first to admit, when people first started complaining about 700 rear wheels, I was like, it's fine. There's not a problem. And then Azub came out with a trike with a through axle that stiffened up the rear end, and I was like, oh, they might be onto something here. And now that I have a 700 with the through axle, it does make a big difference. They've also upgraded the components a little bit. They've also either upgraded or downgraded the price, depending on how you want to think about it. But it is more expensive than the old one. It's now $39.50. You do get carbon fiber triple cranks. You get the through axle with a nice zip rear wheel, which is an upgrade-worthy wheel. And, that's a wheel that people would buy to upgrade their trikes to. And, it does have the parking brake, whether you want that or not. But overall, I still think it's priced properly for what it is. I'm not sure I would call it a bargain anymore, but it's priced properly for what it is, if that makes any sense. And it does handle a lot better. And everything else about it is still 100% Catrike 700, all the things that we've loved about the 700 forever. It's fast, it's aero, it's stiff, it's a very, very good trike. That's kind of my summary of it. And I don't know if Larry wants to say anything here, because he also reviewed it. He helped me with the review because it's snowy up here, and I got it in the height of snow season, and he was in Florida and got to go ride one for a week.
Brian, who shot those beautiful pictures?
That would be Larry.
Oh, Larry, go ahead, bud.
Well, for some reason, we don't see the pictures of me on the trike, but maybe
that was intentional.
I had a feeling. But yeah, I agree with Brian. I didn't notice the effects of the through axle because I'm not one of those people that goes barreling through curves, and I didn't notice any problems in the beginning, from the other seat.
Well,
but,
I'm an idiot. That's why I noticed.
We weren't going to say that till you were gone. But the seat change, as soon as I sat on one of those at the Recumbent Cycle Con in Philadelphia last year, I immediately said to the guy there at the Catrike booth, I want one of these. I mean, it is noticeably better. I like it. I mean, it's a great trike. I love the color. So anyway, I agree with what you said so far.
And as you can see in that photo that we're showing right now, all the old 700 accessories fit it. There's nothing weird about it other than the rear end spacing.
Okay.
But if you're a very hard use rider, aggressive rider, I will say, you'll notice the through axle.
Okay, that sounds great, Brian. Does that wrap it up for you then?
It does.
All right. Interesting review. People are always interested in cat trikes, so we appreciate that. All right, Brian, thanks. We're going to move along to our main guest today. This gentleman is out in Oklahoma. He is a teacher in a high school, and he is a home builder of recumbent trikes. He is a rider of all kinds of bikes. A very interesting gentleman, and we're going to find out more about Jeff Bishop right now. Jeff, are you there?
I sure am. How you guys doing today?
We are speaking for everyone. We are all doing great. It's good to have you on, and we're excited to hear the story.
Oh my gosh, I can't even tell you how much I've dreamed about being on this show. It's like one of my absolute favorite shows on YouTube and pretty much anywhere.
Wow, that is shocking. Thank you for that. That's very nice of you to say.
Well,
Jeff,
hey, #1 recumbent show in the world. I'm just going to say that kind of speaks for itself.
Well, thank you. I'm going to put you on a commercial, and we're going to run that all day long, I think.
That'll work. We can do that.
Jeff, let's talk a little bit about your biking history and then maybe the bent biking history. Tell us about your past riding bikes and how you got into recumbent bikes in general.
It's pretty funny. My wife came to me probably about 4 or 5 years ago, and she said, I want to change life. And I said, well, why? I mean, I'm happy with the way life is right now. And she was unhappy because we were both kind of larger than we are right now. And so we started riding a bicycle, although I was not happy about throwing all of this inside spandex. Then we started off as classic roadies, riding, becoming a big weight weenie, trying to get everything carbon fiber and as light as possible. And I eventually got a Cervelo, she got a Roubaix, and we were just kind of enjoying life, and had a number of big things happen that really started kind of changing my mindset. First of all, me and my buddy down in Texas named Greg, were about to shoot this big hill in Dallas called Windhaven. And he stepped up in a chain and went to pedaling. And as he went to pedaling, boop, he went right over the handlebars. And as he went over the handlebars, he cracked like 3 ribs, and we got him back. And I started realizing most of all of my cycling buddies have taken a lot of damage on bicycles. Another time I was pedaling back and forth to work all the time, and I realized my hands and my feet were going frigidly cold. I couldn't even feel them anymore. And I started thinking to myself, there has got to be a better way to cycle, especially in the cold and not going over handlebars. And so I started looking for a bike that hopefully would kind of keep me safer, warmer, and a little bit more comfortable. And so that's when I found the Kirsten Dunst video on YouTube about Velomobiles. And I absolutely fell in love with them. I was like, oh my gosh, I've got to have one of these things. These are amazing. So I started researching them and found Mango and Wow and all these different really amazing Velomobiles that are out there, and came home and said, babe, I found my next bike. It's going to be amazing. I'm going to love it. I'm going to ride it all the time. And she goes, how much are they? I was like, it's really cool because, they're safe and I won't go the handlebars. And she's like, how much are they? And I was like, well, it's really great because, you're inside the shell. And she goes, how much are they? And I said, $10,000. And she goes, so you want me to let you spend $10,000? You're a school teacher, by the way, on a bike you've never really seen in life and you've never ridden and you don't really ride recumbents. So I don't even know if you're actually going to like it or not. So I said, well, how about I build one? And she was cool with that. And so I started building my first Velomobile. That's pretty much
that's a great way to, that's a great way to introduce it. And that's what we're going to talk about today is the process that you went through to build this Velomobile. So I think maybe at this point we will go ahead with the slideshow and we will start talking about that. So you here's the first slide. This might indicate what this might indicate a little bit of what you were talking about getting into shape here. So because I know you don't look like that now anyway. So
no, I don't look like that at all. I was back about 235 pounds back then. I'm now down to about 170 pounds. So needless to say, a little bit of improvement.
Jeff, tell us a little bit about what the ideas that came to you were then. How were you going to approach this?
Well, honestly, to start off with, I had this romantic notion of building everything, every single little piece and part to my Velomobile. So I wanted to build the trike, I wanted to build the body, and so this is where I started. I started off with a hub, and I got on atomiczombie.com, and they sell plans for a trike. And so I was like, I'm going to build my own trike. So I got this hub, and then I actually built that wheel totally, completely, spoked it, trued it, tensioned it, everything like that. And this is me kind of finishing up the wheel there. And so I found out that there's a couple of different sizes of 20-inch tall tires. So I finally got this one, which was the right size. That's my rear rim after I got it built. And it was really kind of fun there because on that one, I didn't have a truing machine at the house. So I actually trued that in a bicycle spoke and actually got you have to help me out with the term here.
The dish. The
dishing, thank you. Right. I actually got it dished correctly just using a bicycle fork. The guys at the shop were completely amazed. And building these tires actually got me building these wheels actually got me my first job at the bike shop. So this is what it looked like when it was done. I was really pretty proud, really pretty happy as I finished out building some wheels. Those are all 3 of them together in our old house down here in Texas. And you can see in the next slide. So we went from there, and I got some disc brakes, got those off of eBay. And the actual disc brakes themselves, I traded my bicycle manager for a hat. I really love hats and had an old hat making company, so I traded those out, got the disc brakes for free. And this picture here is actually a little bit ahead. Go to the next slide if you would. There's where both my wheels have been built. And go ahead. Now one more, please. There we go. This is really where I started building the frame. I bought a bunch of chromoly tubing, cut it all to size. You can see the little plans out there to the side. This is when I welded the 2 pieces together. This is kind of the backbone of it. And in the next slide, you'll see that this is the rear end of the trike. And then I went in and welded all that together, and that would take us back to the first slide that we skipped over. There we go, right there. That's a good one. Basically got it all pieced together, and I was really proud of it at that point in time. Let me tell you what. All right, next slide.
There's a little delay sometimes.
Oh, we're good. We're good.
Yeah. So go
So
ahead.
this, I put the rear tabs on the back wheel, and I was really trying to be careful about making sure that I had the tab for the derailleur all in place. So I got the back wheel onto it, and this was pretty funny. I didn't know how to get the front bottom bracket at the right height, so I grabbed a bunch of books and some cans and some to try and get it at the right height. And so I got it all welded together like that with the front and the bottom bracket in place.
I think that's a theme that you're going to find throughout Jeff's slides here, folks. You're going to notice a number of household items that are just going to pop up as being part of his process. So,
well, you know, it kind of is what it is. I'm a home builder. All right, so go ahead to the next slide, if you would, please. And so this was, I installed the chain ring up front. Was pretty proud of that. Next slide. And this is when I started chopping apart the old bikes. I got a number of bikes that were just kind of garbagey, and I went in. You can see on the next slide, I cut that neck off, that stem off, and then I went in and cleaned it up. So that's what it looks like, all cleaned up. And then it was way too tall, so I had to chop that puppy in half. The next slide, you can see right there, I've got all the little bearing cups in place now. They're all cleaned off. This is the first front fork. I chopped the legs off, as you can see in the next slide. And kind of waiting for that next slide. There we go. And so I got it all chopped off, and then I had to go in and clean all that off as well. And in the next slide, you'll see that the other front end off a big mountain bike with all kinds of crazy suspension. And I swear, cutting the front legs off dropped about 10 pounds on that front end. So that was all really, really solid. And in the next slide, you'll see I went in and took both of those. And you can tell that they're too tall. Because I cut down the front stem, I had to then cut a section out of the fork to get it about the right height. And you'll see that in the next photo. There we go. So that's all been cut down, re-welded together, and that's pretty much like the finished product there, unput together. So on the next slide, this is when I start building out the steering tabs. And so you take 2 1/4-inch plates, you can see them there in the background, and I had to weld them all together. And so I got it all welded together. And then I went in, and the next slide, you can see I started to shape the front tabs so that they're a little bit more rounded off. And there we are. And so then I realized when I rounded it off like that it needed to be re-welded. So in the next photo, you'll see that I went in and re-welded all that back together, make it one nice solid 1-inch thick plate. I think everything in the Atomic Zombie plans are pretty much like overbuilt. I mean, everything is really pretty heavy. And so then I took that little steering tab there. The next slide, you'll see that I started, I drilled a pilot hole where the axle would go through. And then I took a super, super huge bit. You'll see in the next slide. There we go. And that's kind of how it looks. That's the approximate angle that everything was going to sit at. I was really excited just to see that. I was like, ooh, look, it actually looks like it's going to steer. So I took this huge bit and I was going to pile it down through there. And that's me actually holding the axle itself. It was going to go through there. And in the next slide, you can see that I start to drill out the really big hole. There we go. So there's the big hole. And it was really precarious trying to hold all that in place. Hence the reason why I got the pliers. And that one, you can see I'm pretty much finishing everything up. And in the next slide, this is kind of how it all looked together. I've got the steering tab on the axle on the axle itself, and I'm kind of holding the steering mechanism in place. And then with the front arms and everything bolted together and welded together, that was basically frame 1.0. And I was really proud of that until I sat on it. And when I sat on it, now there's the bottom bracket there that's up front. I just put in the new adapters in place. When I sat on the trike, it was super flexible, which was not good. And so this frame, as much as I loved it, was not going to make the cut. I wanted it to be nice and stiff. I mean, I ride a Cervelo normally. All right, go ahead to the next slide. And then on the next one, you'll see those are the brakes that I traded a hat for, that I made one of my bike shop manager. And so I went in and I started cutting out some cardboard to try and figure out what the mounting tabs are going to look like. And then the next photo, you'll see where I start to put the individual little pieces together, shape them out, and then I welded them together. I didn't have one plate that would fit the whole thing. And this, between frame 1.0 and 2.0, I built this because there was all kinds of little inconsistencies and problems with my first frame. And so this was my jig that I built. And this is the steel that I bought to basically replace the center backbone, hopefully trying to make it a little sturdier. In the next photo, you'll see how big a chunk that was. That was quite an expensive little piece of chromoly there, let me tell you what. All right, next slide. And you can see that I went in, I cut the angle, trying to get it all correct. And then the next slide, you'll see where I basically went in and welded the two pieces together, had everything mounted and ready to go. And then the next slide, you can see, I love this picture because it looks like a goalie hockey stick, but it's actually the center backbone for the trike. So then I mounted all that in a vise, and then I tried to start getting the arms in place. The jig really helped. Oh my gosh, building a jig was definitely worth it. So this is both arms basically welded in place, and the new steering mechanism that's right there in the center that actually made it all the way to the end. And this is everything basically all positioned. Front steering is in place. Front arms are in place. And go ahead and skip over this slide. That's a little earlier on, if you don't mind. There we go. And then the next one, you can see I'm starting to build out the steering. So I got a little bracket up underneath there that's going to handle the tie rods as they go out to the wheels. And it's actually been separated from the jig itself. And the guys on Velomobile Builders, I absolutely love the guys on Velomobile Builders. They're amazing guys. They started talking to me about the trike I was building. They said, you're gonna need to go in and triangulate those front arms. Otherwise, some of the guys had experienced catastrophe. Those arms were breaking loose and coming apart. But here you can see I went in and took care of the Ackerman steering, Ackerman angles on there, try and get all the steering correct. This is the underside of the frame when I started triangulating the rear end of it. And in the next photo, you can see what it looks like from the top side. So there it all has been triangulated. That was a pretty happy moment. All right, next slide. And you can tell how happy I am. This is kind of me sitting on it, thinking to myself, yes, I actually have a trike, and it's all pretty much in place. I'm a goofball, I like pictures. And then in the next slide, this is when I started building out my seat. I actually found this guy on YouTube that built this really amazing seat. So I just gotten this in and I cut it all down to the pattern off of the plans. And then the next photo, this is when I got it all smoothed out. So everything is basically ready to go. And all I needed to do next was to start bending it. And in this photo, you can see the little bender that I made. The two bars there towards us, they're closest towards us. You put the aluminum between those two, and then by pushing those up bars, you can bend it around on the tube, and so you can start getting some shape in it. In the next photo, you can see what I'm talking about. So I've got it all in place, and I'm basically going to go in and bend that seat. And in the next photo, you can see what these are the brackets that I built for underneath of it to actually be able to attach it to the frame. And the next piece, you can see I got the slot all cut out and the bolts in place. And in the next photo, you'll see both of them all taken care of. And then I riveted those to the bottom of the seat. In the next photo, you can see that there it is all riveted together. And then in the next shot, you can see the seat actually sitting on the frame itself. All shaped, brackets in place, and basically most everything taken care of. I could actually sit on it. That was a good day. That's a really good day being able to sit on my trike. All right, this is the motor that I basically had always gone in and figured that I wanted to put onto the trike. It's a Bafang 750 watt, replaces the front chainring in place, and gives you all kinds of extra power when you need it. I commute back and forth to work, and it's about a 30-mile trip one way, and so I thought it'd be a good thing to have that. And then this right here is a little piece of steel I put by the side of the frame. This is to mount the battery. And if you'll see the next slide there, I've got it spot welded, tack welded in place. And then on the next photo, you can see what it looks like with the actual battery mount that's normally supposed to fit in a water bottle cage over the top of the plate. And then the next photo, you'll see what the battery and everything looks like together on the trike. And so that was a great day. Next photo, you can see I started to work out the chain line. So there I've got the chain tensioner in place, trying to drop it down. Triangulating the front end actually created a couple of problems that I didn't realize later on. But that's how basically everything looks together. At that point in time, I even put the derailleur on the back end, and the motor's all in place. So in the next photo, you can see the chain line that I'm trying to work through, trying to make sure that the rear tensioner is now in place. All right, and then the next photo, kind of blazing through these. All right, so I got this whole idea about my Velomobile because everything about my Velomobile is pretty much aircraft inspired because I'm a airplane nut. I'm actually a student pilot and have like 39 hours in a cockpit. I wanted everything about my Velomobile to kind of scream airplanes because Velomobiles kind of look like airplanes to me anyway. So this is a drawing that I did of aircraft style steering on a trike. One of my most popular videos on my YouTube channel. So you can lean the pilot stick left or right and it actually steers the trike itself. It's really, really fun. In the next photo, you'll see where I built out that little piece and then I actually have it mounted to the trike. A couple tabs there. In the next photo, what I found in my garage was an old handlebar and I cut it down, and a little black thing around the handlebar is the potentiometer. It kind of acts like a throttle so that you can engage the motor. So by pushing the flight stick forward, which is that little handlebar, it would actually go forward and then I could still be able to steer left and right. Next photo. And then that's what it looks like pretty much all together. You can see the little potentiometer there that I built a bracket for so it would handle it and then it would steer left and right. And the next photo. And so then I started shaping the chain guide. This is a little piece of irrigation pipe that I bought at home at what we call Lowe's Depot because we go to Lowe's or Home Depot simultaneously. And so I took that in the next photo. I stuck it in some boiling hot water in the next photo. Then I used you can see the little funnel there that I was going to use to shape it. So I had to soften up the piece. And then once it was softened, I basically shoved the little funnel down into the opening and kind of made it expand a little bit. And so that with a couple of conduit clips and a wire coat hanger, I built my chain guide. Next photo. And this is, of course, a little cage that I built around the chain tensioner because the chain would jump off the tensioner every once in a while. So I built a little cage around it. All right, now we get into the body. I basically had frame 2.0 built. I was really happy. In the next photo, you can see that what I've done is I've taken basically the idea of one of my favorite airplanes in the whole world. And in the next photo, you can see what it kind of looks like colored in. And I started developing an idea that I wanted my Velomobile to look like a World War II Flying Tiger P-40 airplane. And so I then took this picture into Photoshop and I got this piece and I was really, really excited about it. So I took this photo here into the computer program that I teach. I teach computer animation and video game design in high school. I'm currently pioneering that program here in Oklahoma. And so you can see the photo in the background, and off of it, I started building the trike itself and producing curves off of the body to kind of three-dimensionalize the idea and kind of bring it to life. So that's what these photos are all about. I was trying to visualize the body, and then I actually put some hard surface geometry in for the nose. And you can see the trike inside of it. I was trying to build everything to scale. And this is, of course, a tail end view. And one of the guys on Velomobile Builders, I started posting these pictures, and the guy said one of the difficulties that Velomobiles have, of course, I still haven't had the opportunity to ride in one, is side winds. Side winds can blow you off the road. And so everybody was like, you've got to cut the tail down because it's way too big. And in the next photo, I went to this design. because the tail wing was so much smaller, and I absolutely adore the GBR2 race plane. In fact, I love this photo because it was a busted up RC plane, but this looked like a velomobile to me. It just needed front wheels and then a little snippet of the tail wheel up underneath of it. And so I just fell in love with this photo. It was like, that's the velomobile I want to have. And so once again, I took plans of it and I started building it in Maya again. Autodesk Maya is a program I work in. And so I have built out the nose. I started doing a little bit of hard surface geometry modeling. And this was kind of an older idea. I still don't know whether I really love this or not, but you can see the wheel skirts that I put around there to kind of mimic the wings. But I love the way that the overall approach of it. And yet I'm still trying to keep it as aerodynamic as possible. So I took this idea and I sat down on my floor with butcher paper. There's my little inspiration. I love Darth Vader photobombing me there. And I went in and I drew it full size. So this is a full size drawing of the velomobile. And this is when life really got exciting. This is it laying on 3 tables there in my classroom. And the reason why I built it in my classroom, I really wanted my students to see what something that they build in the computer could look like in real life. It doesn't only have to exist in the computer. You don't have to 3D print it. You can actually make it. So I took those curves, put them on garage door insulation foam, and then started cutting them out with a jigsaw. In the next photo, you can see a whole bunch of those little curves all in place. And then in the next photo, this is the glue that I use. I did a lot of research and found out that this is one of the best glues for foam on the market, and it's actually just paint. So I put down layers of paint between the foam. These are a whole bunch of the little curves that I cut out. And my students started complaining. If you'll notice, there's a bunch of little pink fuzz all around. And that pink fuzz started getting all over their backpacks and their clothes. They'd walk out of their room and brush themselves off like, Mr. P, you got to stop this. So these are a bunch of curves that I went in and cut out. And in the next slide, you're going to see where I start to build up the body. You can see there in the background, those are the long curves. And then this photo is all the tail curves kind of stacked on top of each other. And this is when I start building the body itself. So I took all those curves, laid them on top of the body profile, and started building them up. Started gluing them all down in place. You can see kids in the background working in Maya. And this, I really was having a huge difficulty trying to figure out how to bring the tail wing and the cockpit together. So I really spent quite a bit of time trying to sculpt this out, shape it, and get it looking correct. And so I really started kind of visualizing how those two surfaces work together. I was really getting happy with it, to be quite honest. In the next photo, you can see how basically that one half of the body looked, and all the remaining curves still up in the background. This was a super, super happy day because this day I actually finally, for the first time, could pick it up off of the drawing, and it started to feel like a real life velomobile because, you know, I mean, I was holding it. All right, so what I did from there is I went in and I started taking all of my nose curves and started gluing them down, and I actually built those kind of like a segmented topographical map. So all these are all of the little individual curves glued on top of one another. And this is actually the process that I'm going to use to build the next body. I went in with a wood rasp and started hand shaping all these little pieces. You can see the inconsistencies between all the little segments. And then I bought this Surefoam rasp from True Value up this road. And oh my gosh, that tool is worth $1 million because it just totally, completely put all those shapes together as one final piece that was smooth. And then I went in from there. On the next photo, you can see I went in and took some sandpaper to it. And this is kind of what it looked like with the first half of the body there in my classroom at Old Berkner High School in Richardson. Next photo. So I started building out the other half of the body. This was a little bit more precarious because obviously you can't lay it flat on the table any longer. And I was using DVDs. You can see them there between two ribs and some tape to kind of keep everything 90 degrees. Once again, as Gary was saying, household appliances there. All right, so then I got all the body all built, both halves of it, and this is where I started working on the canopy, the cockpit area. Pretty exciting day. You see this one, I'm starting to kind of map out what the canopy is going to look like as it goes around my head. And then this is what it looks like with the sanded off smooth nose and the body kind of put together. And soon you're going to start seeing where I actually start building the body itself. And I used basically the philosophy of canoe strip building. The guys that build cedar strip canoes, all right? In the next photo, you'll see when I start cutting out these long strips out of garage door insulation foam, and I started just taping them to the body. Tape kind of became my form, and then I started using the Glidden gripper as paint between the individual pieces, and I started building up the outer skin around the internal bulkheads. So here I'm just stripping up the sides and trying to get everything. And this was a really good day because I got basically all of the first section done, and I couldn't resist any longer. I took my Sure Foam rasp and began to kind of sand down and file down the edges in between the individual strips. And this is the front nose area that I wrapped it up around the top of there, a whole bunch of little strips in place. And the next photo. And then this is once again the little cockpit, and I'd gone in and kind of sanded things down, filed it down a little bit, getting it smoother. And in the next photo, you can see I start working on the other side. So I began to build up the strips on the other side as well, trying to get all of those in place. And this is the other side, building it up. It's actually kind of a fun and easy method to build. I won't say it's my favorite method, because trying to keep everything taped together and glued all in one piece, and then at the same time bending these pieces, was a little bit difficult. And this is me once again trying to fare out the tail of it so that these two different areas, the tail wing and the cockpit, kind of merge together as one harmonious piece. And so I'm kind of finishing up this whole process of getting everything kind of knitted up. And then I flip the whole thing over, and then the bottom of a Velomobile generally mostly is pretty flat, so I just put in some flat pieces there and started kind of finishing up, filling in all the holes. This is going around the other side, and this is me beginning to start filling in that section. You see in the next photo, I've got a bunch of strips kind of filling that in. And then once again in the next photo, you can see that I've almost got this thing all finished up. And this is really interesting because you're cutting all these little bitty teeny tiny custom pieces, trying to fill in all the holes. And this is a super happy day because basically everything on the body was all filled in and it just needed to dry. This was late on a Friday, and I just kind of headed home to let it dry over the weekend. So this is a really, really good day. Boy, that was a good day. I have to tell you, building the body is definitely the most fun part of this whole project. All right, so this is an inside shot of what the canopy area is going to look like with all the bulkheads still in place. And in the next photo, you can see kind of a full-on frontal shot of all the processes, everything kind of put together. And then the next photo, you'll see a major screw-up where I found out that putting the strips around the bulkheads and then trying to pair it up to the nose didn't quite work because the two pieces didn't fit together. So I went in and I made an extension for the nose. I glued a whole bunch of bigger curves together, and then I put the two sections back together. You can see this is kind of bridging the gulf between the two. And then in the next photo, you'll see where I take the Sure Foam rasp in after this slide, and I start kind of whittling everything back together again. So that's what it looked like with the bridge, the gulf between the two pieces, more smoothly transition, I guess you would say. And so this was a great day because basically everything was all together. And so now I got to do some of the scary stuff. I mean, I spent probably 6 months of my life. This is mapping out the hole. So in a Velomobile, you can go in reverse. So in the next photo, you'll see how everything looks when you go in and you sand down the body. How it all kind of smooths out. It's really kind of nice. And then I put the trike itself up next to the body, just kind of envisioning what they would look like together, hopefully. And that's when we get into the scary part, because you spend 6 months of your life building this Velomobile body, and then you trace out this curve of all the sections that you've laboriously put together, and then you get to cut it out. And if you mess this up, you mess everything up. So I cut all that away, and then I decided I was going to go in and I was going to fill in all the little holes using West Systems. That's kind of my epoxy, and this is a fairing filler. It turns the epoxy into basically a Bondo. And so I started bondoing all the obvious areas that needed to be filled in. And you can see in the next photo, I did the other side. And then I started to go in and sand the Bondo, but the Bondo had a much tougher consistency than the foam body. So that brings us to this photo that I just decided I was just going to Bondo everything. Therefore, I'd have one constant, consistent thickness of skin over the top of it, and I can sand it all down nice and smooth. And I flipped it over, started bondoing the underside of this thing. And in the next photo, you'll see that I got the other side as well. And you can tell I'm starting to sand on the upper surface of it as well. And then I did the nose. And so then I started going and I started sanding all this thing, trying to get it smooth. But the big thing that I discovered was the Bondo over the top, when you sanded it down, it would just eat right through the foam. So then we decided we were going to move. So we moved from Texas to Oklahoma. So I had officially quit my job there in Texas, and I brought everything home. And this is in our empty house right as we were getting ready to sell it. And so what we had to do was we had to go in and move it out of the house. We're going to put it in a U-Haul little space. So this is my little Escalade box, my Velomobile travels in style. And so we loaded it up on the trailer, and we took it to the U-Haul place. This is my beautiful, darling wife helping me out with that. This was such a nerve-wracking process, man, just trying to get it in there. This was its new home. It got to live there for probably about a month and a half, 2 months, and I didn't get to see it at all. And then this was a happy day because we came from Oklahoma down to pick up the body. You can see the little wood crate behind me that we built for it, because it's a good 4-hour trip from Dallas to Oklahoma City if you drive at a reasonable speed. And so we loaded it up in that crate and brought it to my new home. And this is kind of my garage that I'm currently sitting in, as it looked a long time ago when we first moved in. So this is basically where she got to live. In the next photo, we went out. I finished up the trike. Let me kind of explain this photo a little bit. Well, as I finished up the trike, I realized that everything in my trike that I built off the Atomic Zombie plans, everything was heavy. It was overbuilt. It was kind of overdesigned. And so we went down to a local recumbent shop. My wife was incredibly amazing enough to let me buy a trike. So I rode all the different trikes that they had, and I fell in love with the ice trike. And so this one is my brand new trike that I brought home. And so now I'm building a brand new body for this trike to go around. And in the next photo, you can see I wasn't completely happy with the trike itself. The front tires were thick and heavy and knobby. I bought new Schwalbes, and I got a new cassette because it was running mountain bike gearing, and I'm a roadie. And I replaced the old cantilever brakes on the back end with some disc brakes that I had from the first trike. And then this is the brand new wheel that I bought for it. I bought this from the new bike shop that I work at. Installed the disc brakes and a new cassette on it. And the next photo, you can kind of see what it's starting to look like. That's the rotor. Excuse me, the rotor on the new wheel. And that's it all put together, basically ready to go onto the trike.
Jeff, if I could stop you for just a second here,
Sure.
I do. Before we get too far away from the classroom, I have a question on live chat
Sure.
from Dam Runner 1, who asks, were the kids interested and enthusiastic about the build of what you were doing, I guess? In Arizona, I get a great reception by younger people. So what was the reaction of the kids?
I can honestly tell you, first of all, they'd never seen a Velomobile. And because they'd never seen one, and you can see my baby back here in the background, because they'd never seen one, kids would come from the hallways, and they come walking into my room, and they go, "What is that?" And so as soon as they see it, I say, well, it's a Velomobile, and it's like a bicycle that you don't see in America because they're super expensive. And so I'm building one, and they're like, wow, that's really cool. And of course, the kids in my classroom are pretty fascinated by it because they're like, I can't believe that was in the computer, Mr. B, and now you're actually building it in real life. You
And
know,
that was your whole, that's what you were saying earlier. That was your intention all along, is to let them see the reality of what they could build.
Absolutely. Yeah, because I wanted to kind of ignite their passion for building something in a computer that could actually be in real life. And I think that's amazing.
Yeah, it is. It definitely is. All right, let's go on back to the trike if we can, Lars. Hit the slide, and let's continue on.
Okay, so this is, once again, this is my new trike. And so I got all the back wheel finished up, and I've gone in from here. And because I'm a roadie, and I really kind of like my road bike, it's running full Dura Ace now. This is my new shop, Bike One here in Oklahoma City. And I put my Ortlieb panniers on there and had ridden it up to work, and actually discovered that I'm the same speed on my recumbent as I am on my Cervelo. Which doesn't make any sense at all, but there it is. And so I started building this bike in the computer as well. The perfect thing about having a trike that was finished was I could go in and take all the measurements off of it that I wanted to. And so I built my new trike actually to scale. So I built out the seat. I even spent extra time building the bottom bracket and getting all the grooves correct, and the rear dropouts. I mean, I went in and really laboriously tried to build that trike, you know, not spending way too much time on it, obviously, but as perfectly as possible. So this is my new build. This is the one off of kind of going back to a little bit of the P40 design, still integrated with the GB2 together. And so I've gone in and I've redesigned everything. Great thing is it'll fit through a door now. The original trike was way wide, super wide. And this is the early design on the canopy. I actually changed this because it was just kind of goofy looking. The beautiful thing about building in the computer like this is you can go in, get everything the way you want it, and you don't have to mess up any material. So this is me reducing it all to individual curves that are finalized curves. And then I took all of these curves and brought them back in and that's what it looks like, all basically hard modeled. I'm still kind of debating whether or not to include the amazing little nose piece up underneath there. I've gotten a lot of viewpoints back and forth on it. So this is what it looks like from the tail end. Really super excited about the new body. I think I'm going to probably drop that round nose piece off the GB and just go with a straight fighter pilot looking craft like it looks right there. So, and this is kind of the final view of it before I take it to just the individual curves. And then in the individual curves, you'll see in the next photo, it's our last photo of the slides, took all those individual curves and I actually used a poster printer that I have in a classroom to print this puppy out full size. So I'm going to use all these individual curves once again to put onto foam and then cut it all out and glue them all together and then build out the body once again. Because the original body is way too long and it's way too wide. It's built for the Atomic Zombie trike. It's not built for the ice trike. So I get the pleasure of building another body. I'm actually really looking forward to it. This is my favorite part of the build anyway.
That's a good thing, I think, Jeff, because as much time and effort as you put into that, this is obviously a work in progress. So now this next time around, you're going to be building it in the garage, right? Or you have a shop there at the house, right? Is that
yeah? When we bought the house, we actually got an old dairy barn out in the back, and the old dairy barn out back is like 1,500 square feet. And so we're in the process of pouring all kinds of money into this old dairy barn, and it'll be my full-blown shop. We put a floor in it and electricity in it. Now we're trying to get siding around the outside of it. And eventually, it might be the shop that I've been dreaming about having since I was a little kid. Mom and Dad used to ground me and send me to my bedroom, and I go in there and build stuff.
You've just taken the adult version of that, then, haven't you, to make things that you love to make? So let me ask you, I got a question that we got via email this week from Alan Mikulite. He asks, Jeff, is this a one-off or will molds be made? If a one-off, what will the release surface be? If molds, how will you cover the foam to get a hard, smooth surface, monocoque or shell over frame? Well, we know it's going to be shell over the trike. So, but on the first part of that, what's the shell going to be designed as?
Well, basically, the body itself, the foam, once I get the foam structure all finished up, I want to take it to like a professional auto body guy and have him completely and totally sweet it out. I mean, so it's absolutely buttery smooth. From there, I've been talking to this guy on Velmobile Builders, who is an amazing builder in Australia. And he has basically, we've talked back and forth about how to mold off of the plug that I'm building. And so I'm going to take molds off of it. And then inside the molds, I'm going to go in and I'm going to basically cast a body inside of it that will be aramid. It's like half carbon fiber and half Kevlar with the West Coast systems inside of it. So the final shell will be super lightweight because I'm a road cyclist generally until I got into recumbents. And so it'll be as lightweight as possible and yet impact resistant, which is basically how they build the WOW in Czechoslovakia.
Mm-hmm. All right.
So that's pretty much the direction that we're headed right now.
All right. Okay. That's the end of the questions I have. Panel, anybody on the panel have any questions for Jeff before we let him go?
Yeah, this is not really related to the build, but before you rebuild your barn, can I have a picture of it?
Yeah, absolutely. That's not a problem at all.
Yeah, I kind of collect pictures of old barns and stuff, especially up here, but I don't have anything out of Oklahoma.
I'll tell you, when we first found the house, that was the one thing that I could have cared less what the house looked like itself, honestly. I walked down to the backyard and I saw that old dairy barn and I just looked at my wife and I'm like, we live here. Let's just sign the contract. Because when I saw that barn, oh my gosh, as a little kid that has always built stuff, you know, to have a big shop that can actually house all my tools and all the tools that I want to have and so forth, I fell in love. I fell in love. So we've almost poured $15,000 just into the garage itself, into the shop itself, to convert it from being an old barn into being a shop that we can actually work in.
Very cool.
And Jeff, we have on live chat a question from M. Kala 7293. Is he still teaching high school?
Absolutely. I teach now at Putnam City West High School in Oklahoma City. I'm pioneering computer animation and video game design for the entire state of Oklahoma. When I got here, nobody has it. Nobody has computer animation or video game design, and that's what I specialize in. It floored me, quite honestly, that to see that we don't have it here. So I'm in the process of upgrading my lab. I just wrote a grant for $15,000 to get my computers up to speed. I'm writing another grant so that we can get $50,000 worth of a motion capture machine in my room. And so this is my big shout out to all my Putnam City West kids. They were like, "Are you going to talk about us on the show, Mr. B?" So, hey guys, how's it going?
Anyway, I guess you have. That's right.
So, yeah, I mean, you know, I still teach high school. Honestly, I quit teaching high school for a little bit because I thought I'm kind of tired of the bureaucracy and the red tape of it. And eventually I went to nursing school to do that for a little while. And I found my true heart and passion working with high school kids. I absolutely adore them. I like talking to them and hanging out with during lunch with them and finding out about their girlfriends and boyfriends and we play a lot of board games and card games in my room. I probably will be like the oldest guy in a school district still teaching because they're amazing. They're absolutely amazing.
That's great. It's good to see your passion for that, Jeff, as well as your passion for building. So, all right, I think we're going to kind of leave it there. Did you have any final thoughts here for us?
I think I'm good. I mean, like, you know, I really appreciate the invitation to be on the show. It's really kind of neat. I love my YouTube channel. If you get a chance, come check us out. I show all my failures and all my successes. I guess that's good for me.
All right, Jeff. And that was the final thing. I was going to ask you to let us know how people can find out more about Jeff Bishop and what you're up to.
Well, I'm definitely kind of a wild, crazy guy. I do all kinds of weird stuff, and I've got my little channel. You can see right there my name. I'm known as Velo American, which is kind of a joke on one of my former students. He calls himself McMerica instead of McMurray is his last name. And so I kind of adopted that as like a channel name, and I put up crazy videos all the time. One of the next videos is going to go up is I got a chance to ride a penny farthing. I'm kind of an 1800s kind of guy anyway, and so that's going to be going up pretty soon. And I started another little Facebook group called Penny Farthing Builders, and so I'm on YouTube. Come check me out. My shows are kind of fun and wild, and we do kind of weird stuff.
All right, we will of course link that YouTube channel in the description below the video.
Thank you.
Here on YouTube, of course, to let people find out more about you. Jeff, it has been a singular pleasure having you on the Laidback Bike Report. You're a fun guy to work with. I've enjoyed setting up everything on the show with you ahead of time, and it's been a delight to have you on the show today. So I hope we'll catch back up with you when the project continues and
Cool.
see how things are going. But we really appreciate you coming on, Jeff.
Thank you very much.
Okay, very good. All
Bye,
right,
guys.
folks. There we go. We're going to move along now to New York State. We're ensconced, I believe, in the shop is Peter Stull. Peter, you want to unmute yourself? You have. Very good. And Peter's going to talk to us today about some home building that went on in the past. Is that right, Peter?
Yes. It turns out that a lot of recumbents get home built, of course, because you can't, especially in the past, you couldn't go out and buy one. So people built their own, and that's sort of a neat thing about recumbents. Can you hear me okay? Because
yeah, you're doing fine. You go right ahead.
I can't hear myself at all, so I'll just keep talking. That's something I'm good at. Ask Bryan. So we got two bikes here in the collection that are home builts. One of them is a home built bike that a guy built. I've known nothing about it except I have it. Don't know where it came from. I bought it from California, but I'm not sure where it was made. And if anybody recognizes this bike, get in touch with. There it is. That's the first one. That's a pretty cool bike, and I've got it down off the ceiling here so we can look at it. I'm going to turn my camera around and wander over there. So give me a second. And got this little beastie back on there. There. How's that work?
Yeah.
All right, we're live. Okay,
wow.
So the picture you see from the side here, you know, that's what it looks like, right? It's all neat and everything. Now notice the size of the chainring. It's a 64 mirror image here on the screen. That's a 64 tooth chainring. That gives you 128-inch gear. So he thought it was going to be fast. But you know, one of the problems with a home built bike, and one of the challenges with a home built bike, is that you build it and then you try it and then you realize what you would do different next time. As we've seen, sometimes home builders start one and ended up, you know, the first one gets halfway done, then you go and you start on revision 2 before you ever finish the first one sometimes. So, you know, there's a couple issues with this one. One is you'll notice the handlebar is a little above the seat, so it touches the back of your leg. It's a little bit awkward. One of the constraints that a home builder doesn't have, you know, if you're going to build a bike and sell it, you're going to have it disassembled for shipping. But on this one, you'll notice the sissy bar is welded onto the frame, and so is the bottom bracket shell. So it doesn't really come apart for shipping. Another thing about this bike, it doesn't adjust for leg length, so it fits the original owner, I hope, because it doesn't fit me. And it's certainly, did anybody think it's inspired by the muscle bikes of the 60s, like the Schwinn Apple Crate and Lemon Picker and Orange Peeler and all those, Cotton Picker, whatever they were? Yeah, I think it's Cotton Picker. That's kind of where they come from. And look at how wide this seat is. Okay, so, you know, one of the things about a recumbent is you can have a wide seat, but he didn't. So, but there it is, a very unique bike. We call it the brass bent. It's brass plated. It's beautifully executed. The front wheel is a 16, the back is a 26, and the front wheel is a sew-up tire, so it doesn't hold air, and I don't know where to get one, so I guess we're not going to ride it.
Yeah, Peter.
Yep.
Yeah, it looks like kind of an influence out of a P38, an early P38.
Yeah, it's got the space frame. Yep.
Yeah.
Good point. Yeah, I don't know what year it is, but I think the TA crank on it may predate the P38. I'm sure the crank does. Also, you notice the stem is an adjustable track stem. Maybe not a track stem, but it's an adjustable stem. So I'm thinking maybe it predates the P38, but I just don't really know. The rear derailleur also is quite old. All the parts seem to be from about the same period. So if I were to home build something like this, I would rummage around out back and I'd come up with parts from decades apart. But these all seem to be about the same time span. So the next bike we've got is hanging up in the ceiling. We'll do that with that one with the slideshow. And that one is a little different. Let me turn my camera around, although we're going to be using a slideshow, so it doesn't matter. You don't actually have to look at me because we're using slides. Yeah, all right. So if we could go, there you go. Let's stay on that one for a minute. This is a home-built bike. It was built by Steve Leitgen in Iowa. He was a frame builder. He was riding his new custom pursuit bike in Ragbri in I forget exactly what year. It would have been about 79 or 80. And a lady passed him on a Tour Easy. So he decided to catch her and find out what that was all about. And he caught her and rode with her a bit and talked with her some and got interested in recumbents. He went home and built this. Now this one, you'll notice the seat is adjustable for leg length. You can slide the seat forward and backward. The two rails underneath the aluminum seat, you can loosen up that big block clamp and slide the seat forward and backward. You can also adjust it up and down some. So your seat height's adjustable and the leg length is adjustable. But you'll notice it's not triangulated for the pedal pressure. When you push on the pedal, it pushes back on the seat, and there's not a whole lot of structure there to resist that movement. And he uses some found material here. He's got the crankset is missing on the front boom, but you'll notice that's a tandem eccentric to adjust the chain. Then he has a mid-drive with two large sprockets, and those are two cranksets sawed off. And then it would go to the back wheel. So it's a crossover drive. It's basically a tandem type of drive, but it's Reynolds 531 frame tubing. So he's a road builder. So that's what he was familiar with. So this bike, he built this bike. He rode this bike some. I've got a couple pictures of him somewhere of him riding it, and then I don't think he rode it very much. It doesn't look like it's been ridden a whole lot, and it kind of got dusty in his back room, I think. But then he knew a guy that built aluminum trucks, and let's go to the next slide here. The same designer designed this bike, and his friend ran Kahn Manufacturing that built aluminum trucks, and they decided to build a recumbent. So they built this recumbent. It has the seat is sort of similar. The mount is different, but there's still no triangulation behind the seat. And it's a long wheelbase instead of a short wheelbase. I'm guessing the first one wasn't real stable, so he decided to go long wheelbase. He also did see a article in a magazine about the Avatar 2000. So he copied some of the design ideas from that. This is made out of aluminum. And this bike became the Linear. This one is the first one ever sold, and it doesn't have the Linear name on it. Let's go to the next slide. And this is Steve's personal bike. This is after the Linear decal, Linear name came out. And it doesn't have triangulation on the seat, but you'll notice the seat back is taller, and the seat's reclined a little bit. And it has below seat steering. This is the first Linear with below seat steering. So you see, they built one, and then they fiddled around and changed it, raised the seat, added below seat steering, changed it a bit. And we'll go to the next slide. And this is a production Linear. It's foldable. It was made by Linear Manufacturing in Iowa, and they were available. They were at the bike show in New York City. I think is the first place I saw them, on Columbus Circle. The beam, okay, this is in 2002, 2001, they went out of business. 2002, we bought their assets. This was us re-engineering the bike. So you see the progression from they built this, they built that, they modified it. Now we're testing it. In this stand, there's a hydraulic jack. The little red orange thing there is a hydraulic jack. And we're pushing about a ton down on the frame and measuring how the frame flexes and seeing if it correlates well to our computer model. So this was, this is the first prototype of the rear frame for what became all the linears after that. We called it the Limo 3.0. But this was our first prototype of that, and next picture will show us some of the FEA we did to computer analysis of structure. Now that starts to look a little more familiar like a modern linear. Next slide. And this is the first limo that we sold. This gentleman had been waiting for the bike for quite a while. He'd been waiting several months, and he really wanted to get out and ride around Lake Ontario. So we did our first production run, and we found there's obviously a structural defect in it. And I told him we would have the new parts soon, and he said, "Just weld it up. I want to ride." So we welded it up and gave it to him with a warning that it wasn't going to probably pass our testing. And he rode it like 6,000 miles, mostly loaded. Let's go back to that slide, please. We go back one slide. Thank you. He rode it 5,000 or 6,000 miles, including a loaded trip around Lake Ontario, which is about 1,000 miles. Then one day he asked if we would paint it, what it would cost for him to send it in and have it painted. He sent it in, and we gave him a new one that we could guarantee and painted the color he wanted. Now, the next slide. There you go. This is the first linear roadster, which went to a bent ride in 2006, 8, 7, something like that. And I did the ride, and a bunch of people rode it and liked it. And we weren't quite done with it. It's the back end of an Iowa-built compact welded onto a short wheelbase beam we made. And then the next one. And that's me riding the same bike with a 26-inch rear wheel. And next one. Next slide. Thank you. There is the new folding long wheelbase linear. So the reason for all these pictures, I wanted to show how the progression of one product leads to another product, leads to another product, and you build it and you do some testing, you fatigue test and break something, you sell a few, you ride a bunch, you tweak it a little bit more, and then there's a progression. So a home-built bike is a one-off typically, and I'm sure anybody that finishes a home-built bike would sit down and go, yeah, if I were to do that again, I would probably do something a little different. And that's one of the things a manufacturer really ought to do, is to refine the product and perfect it over time. So there we go. Those are our two home builders, and the one that led to something and the other one that, as far as I know, didn't. If anybody knows anything about the history of that brass bent, maybe the original builder is watching, that would be really cool. You could email me at pete@bicycleman.com. Thank you, Gary.
Peter, thank you so much. It was really interesting to watch the development there. So we appreciate that, as always, Peter. All right, folks, at this point, I'm going to ask a few questions here for our contest. And hopefully you've been paying attention. If you know the answers to these questions, email them immediately to laidbackbikereport@gmail.com. And the first person to come up with the best answers here will win our contest. Okay, here we go. Number one question. What was the name of Craig Calfee's first recumbent design? What was the name of Craig Calfee's first recumbent design? Number two. Name one of the three major changes in the new Catrike 700 that Bryan talked about. What are one of the three major changes in the new Catrike 700? Question number three. What model and brand of trike is Jeff Bishop using for the base of his new Velomobile design? You saw him design two concept trikes, but he is actually going to end up using a production model trike. What is the model and brand of that trike that Jeff is using for his Velomobile? And question number 4, one of the home-built bikes that Peter just talked about became what recumbent brand that is still in production? What brand of bike is still in production that was based upon a home build that Peter just talked about? Okay, so if you know the answers there, email them to laidbackbikereport@gmail.com right now, and I'm going to check on those in just a couple of minutes here. Right now, I want to once again thank our wonderful sponsors of this show, Terracycle. Check out their unique bags and purple sky flags, and Trailside.bike. If you find yourself in Florida near the Withlacoochee Trail, stop in to see Andrew and his crew. And Velocity, builders of performance wheels and rims, handmade in the USA. All right, folks. I've changed the way we're doing the report a little bit here today, so it's a little early. I don't have too many responses yet. So let me go ahead and continue the closing of the show here, and we might just slip back and see if we have an answer. If we don't, then we're going to go ahead and look for the winners after the show. We'll announce it next month, and we'll make sure that your prize gets out to you in any case. So at this point, I want you to to understand that we have a description and clickable table of contents in the description of the YouTube video, and the links that we mentioned on the show in the description of the video below the YouTube video that you're watching right now. So the clickable table of contents will get you to any of the sections of the video that we are creating right now, and the links, of course, all the links to the people and the things we've talked about right there in the description below. So we hope you'll take advantage of that. And I want to talk about next month's Laidback Bike Report. Next month, we will be on Sunday, of course, April 8th. And we're going to have Ligerad Frau. Her name is Maria Jean Dompierre. Do we have that picture? Do we have that picture? I may not even have put that in. Okay. Ligerad Frau is a German woman who is very well known as a recumbent bike advocate in Germany, and she is trying to expand her viewing audience to the wider world. So we're going to have her on. She's a delightful lady, and she's got a lot to say about recumbent bikes, especially trikes, and women riding recumbent trikes. So we look forward to talking to Maria next month. And of course, we hope to have Peter Stull back on with some more recumbent history. At this point, I want to do a little shout out to Natalie Wilson, also known as Zebra on a Bike. I noticed her posts on Facebook. Natalie is cycling 5,000 miles around the United Kingdom coastline to share her experiences and to raise awareness and meet others with what's called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. It's a connective tissue disorder. She's a very brave young lady, and really wanted to give her a little shout out and hope that you guys will follow and support her. She started February 24th, just over a week ago, and we want to wish her all the luck in the world on her quest. So good luck to you, Natalie. And now I want to thank, of course, our panelists, Bryan Ball, who has had to take off a little early, and Bent Rider, who always give us lots of support. We appreciate that, Bryan, and all that you do for the show. And all the rest of my panelists, Denny and Larry, who joined us late, Larry Seidman, and Larry Varney, of course, Lars Kamm, who did a wonderful job on the directing today, Peter Stull, of course, with his history of recumbent bikes. We appreciate all you guys helping us out. And Trey, of course, who's been doing the slideshow Just a wonderful job. That was a big chunk to handle today, Trey. Thank you all so much for that. So let's move along to subscribing to the YouTube channel. We talked a little bit about that at the start of the show. If you look down here again at the lower right-hand corner, you'll see a little red subscribe button. Click that if you would. Hit the notification bell so you get notifications, and that will subscribe you to the YouTube channel. And also the little white eye that you might see up in that corner. That'll take you to our website and finding out more about that. And at the website, if you do get there, I hope that you'll take a look at the website and see all of our sponsors at the top of the page who support our program. Please support them. You'll be able to find our most recent show, our upcoming shows, our past shows, some bonus material, pictures, and things that we use in the show. And you can sign up for our mailing list there, where you'll get an email maybe once or twice a month bringing you up to date and announcing our shows. And while you're there on the website, you can also buy a hat. Yes, a hat that is often worn by our panelists. You can see people wearing them all across the country and across the world now while riding their bikes or just entertaining with a glass of wine. Any of those things are possible with a Laidback Bike Report hat. So it's $20, $5 shipping and handling. So we hope that you will take advantage of that. So you can find all that stuff at the laidbackbikereport.com. So that's it for this time around, folks. Thanks for watching today. We enjoyed having you with us. We hope you enjoyed the show. Until our next webcast, from all of us here at the Laidback Bike Report, so long, Bent Riders.